It's Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021, 6 p.m. I call to order the Coney County Council special meeting and public hearings. As a reminder to the public has two times they can speak in council meetings. The first is public comments, and the second is public hearing, if there's one scheduled. Other than those two times, the public should remain silent during the council meeting. Anyone making a disturbance during the meeting will be asked to leave council chambers for the remainder of the meeting. Mr. Root?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just wanted to remind, since we have 3 public hearings today, remind the council that public hearings are essentially a one-way street for the public to have an opportunity to be heard. It's not an interactive process for obvious reasons. We don't want to get in arguments and not let everyone have an opportunity to be heard. Council members, when they get into discussion on any of the particular ordinances, can address questions that were brought up. Our rules that govern public hearings state that members of the council should refrain from making comments during the public hearing and should neither enter into debate with the public nor with one another during the public hearing. So that's essentially how we govern it. Just giving you an idea, because I know sometimes you want to ask questions and y'all get in odd stare-offs, but that's why they don't answer during that time. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Mr. Root.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include a moment of silence, prayer, and the Pledge of Allegiance in that order as the first 3 agenda items immediately prior to the opening of public hearings.
Second. Any discussion?
You can do it. Just need a supermajority, but yeah, you can still do it. This is just for today's meeting.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So prayers first. Mr. Root.
Moment of silence first.
Moment of silence.
A vote of silence again. Mr. Root?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Pray with me if you'd like to. Well, dear Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this evening. It is a wonderful process that we have in this country and in this county where we can meet, we can assemble, and we can talk things out in a transparent way. I pray that we be mindful that, as county government, we do live in a glass house, and for staff to always have that attitude tonight and always to work with the public and council to be helping and service-oriented. Pray for your wisdom. Obviously, these are big issues with the budgets that we're considering tonight, and we need your wisdom at all times, but particularly this evening, that you'd essentially govern these proceedings, give us insight, give us direction, and that it would be your meeting, and I pray in your name. Amen.
Mr. Durham, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public hearing for the following ordinance. Ordinance 2021-01. An ordinance to establish the budget for Coney County and to provide for the levy of taxes for ordinary county purposes, for the Tri-County Technical College Special Revenue Fund, for the Emergency Services Protection Special Revenue Fund, for the Road Maintenance Special Revenue Fund, for the Bridge and Culvert Capital Project Fund, for the Economic Development Capital Project Fund, for the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Capital Projects Fund, for the Debt Service Fund, for the Victim Services Special Revenue Funds, for the Capital Vehicle Equipment Fund, all in Coney County for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. And if anyone wants to follow up on the backup material, you can go to, on your phone, go to oconeysc.com and pull up the backup material. First to sign up for the public hearing is, and excuse me if I say it wrong, John Windorf.
Thank you for hearing me. Where I'd like to start my discussion is not directly related to the county, but in long range it is. Our federal government presently is passing laws, bills and such that take a lot of money out of the pockets of people in this county and the United States. They're giving away free money. They're giving away free checks to people just because they're showing up. I like to think you all realize nothing is free. That said, our taxes is going up, the cost of food's going up, the cost of groceries is going up, the cost of going to restaurants, gas, everything is going up because their decisions. When you guys are coming along and proposing a budget that's increasing our budget in this county by $8 million, $8 million, that's adding more burden on the people of this county. We're already getting burdened tremendously by the federal government. We don't need more burden. Now, if you look at what you have in your budget line items, all of that stuff, or most of it, and probably 90% of it, is covered by this bill that our president is trying to push through, the infrastructure bill. Go after that money. Leave us alone. Back off on this $7 million increase on our taxes or on our budget. Take a look at what you're doing and try to economize on some things. I'd like to see an open book audit on the past budget and see where we spent money and where we didn't spend money and how we can pull back on spending some money. The only thing I would be in favor of spending any money on it is in the police department or sheriff's department for training and or equipment if they need it. But again, if we have our current budget that we had last year, I think you'd find enough money out of it to subsidize them in some way. Thank you.
Luke Moore.
My name's Luke Moore. I've come up here a couple of times to talk to you, and the last time I was sure enough nice. I said I don't want to say nothing negative. Instead, I want to ask you to please take this pledge and prayer from lines 4 and 5 and put it right back at the top where it belongs. I feel like we're doing this thing out of order. You make this right here, Mr. Elliott. I'm going to call you John from now on. You don't deserve Mr. You make this. Is that a spit in my face to take it off because I asked for it? Is that what that is? Did you not appoint the man to the other committee, the planning committee, that also done the same thing just like a week or so ago? You anti-American? You anti-God? What's next? You going to try to take that flag right there out too? Nearly 80,000 people live in this county, buddy. You're one little man. You are supposed to be representing those 80,000. You're telling me that out of the 2,672 people that voted for you, that 1,300, and what would that be, 36, but you'd have to add 137, that those people, that you are representing them, that they're anti-American, that they're anti-God? Boys, you boys are big enough to see that the stupidity that he just done and try to correct that. Why in the world would y'all see this and not step up and say something? Especially when the last couple of times that this happened, somebody has come in and asked, would you please correct that? Obviously, asking don't get nowhere, does it? He just said in that prayer, he said, the people live in glass houses. You just peed off the men that are standing in your gravel driveway. You understand what I'm saying? This county deserves better than what you guys are giving it. I've never even spoke with you. I'm blocked on Facebook, but I've never spoke to you. We've never said hello, I don't think. Me and Paul, we spoke a time. We obviously don't see eye to eye on the budget. But he said that he was in favor of taking care of the kids that was falling behind, especially due to COVID. I support that 100%, and I come up here, and that lady right there can tell you, I walked up here and I said thank you for that. When a man does right, even if we disagree on everything else, I'm a man that can separate that one thing off. I could say, right here, you did good, and I thank you for that. You just shove your head up your hind end or something for a minute. I don't know what in the world you're thinking when a man says, will you please take the Pledge of Allegiance from right here to right here, and instead what you do is you say, watch this, I'm just going to make you mad. Erase. You live here. You live here and you beat off the people you live with. 80,000 Americans in Oconee County. Nearly 80,000 in Oconee County. Roll your eyes, look to the side. All you do usually is sit there and be quiet and look around. I'm going to tell you what. This place and these men and women, every one of them, you're taking money from these people. You're sitting in a chair that we pay for. Behind that little desk right there that our tax dollars built. These lights are on because of the tax dollars you took from them and myself. And the way you show your appreciation is by trying to take out the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer. What do you stand for? If you don't stand for America and you don't stand for God, what do you stand for? I'd like to know. You know what? Riley, I know I'm putting you on the spot. I want you to put it in the paper for me. Luke Moore is making a call to every American in Oconee County that stands for the flag and for God to unite and put this man out of office. I don't know what you're thinking. Maybe it's a puppet master. Maybe you got some little group or somebody that, whatever, I don't know. But what I do know is there's 80,000 of us. And 80,000 people, I guarantee you, if you're supposed to be representing the majority, that 51% of them does not approve of y'all taking out the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer. It's happening all over this country. I just come home from New Jersey. Y'all know the kind of crap I just saw in New Jersey? You're creeping that way. Every little step you take is just a little closer, a little closer. And I don't know if you ain't got the common sense to see what you're doing, or if you just simply don't care. Some of these votes don't make no sense, boys. You can't tell me where some of this money is in this budget. Why would you pass something? You know what? I believe it was universal health care. They said you got to pass it to find out what's in it. Y'all remember that? Is that what we're playing? We got to pass something to be able to figure out what the heck it is? And you're going to do it on my dollar? No. I know you're gonna probably just pass it right on for spite, just because you get peed off because somebody comes up here and speaks their mind. You'll probably do it. I wouldn't be surprised. Probably look at us and smile and throw a hand up. But I'm gonna tell you what, boys. There's 80,000 of us. 80,000 in the county. Looking at 5 faces. A lot of the people's been ignorant and they've not understood what was going on. I didn't come here until I found out and I learned and I realized what was happening and I started paying attention. A lot of people ain't been paying attention because they didn't know. Well, guess what? We're about to blow the top off of that. This place will be packed out soon. There'll be people standing outside. You're going to have to answer for it when you walk in the grocery store. People's going to start realizing who you are. And it ain't going to be for the good on some of you. That makes me so mad I shake. And to know that you just have to sit there and just look at me. And you usually probably don't even care that a man's speaking, just to be like, well, his 5 minutes almost over, and then I'll go on about my business, do my vote. I'm not even probably listening. I wonder if Yusuf's will still be open. Go find me some chicken when this is over. This is important. This budget is important. But on the vote of the budget to take out the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance shows me that you obviously do not have the right direction. You pray first. You say you pledge. Instead, when a man comes up and asks the thanks that he gets or the response that he gets, is it just being taken out, Elliot? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. I hope you're real proud. I'm sure you got family. And I hope that they look at that and say, well, I would say the pledge. You got something against America? Would you not want your grandkids growing up in an America that's free? Men and women fight and die for that. Just for y'all to sit up here and stare at a man like it ain't nothing. Boys, I'm fed up. I've had enough of that crap. I'm not going to ask. I'm going to say, this is Oconee County. You're sitting in a chair that I pay for, with lights on that I help pay for. You probably help pay for it too. You pay your taxes too. But let me tell you something. You ain't no more special than I am. You wake up in the morning, you put your pants on one leg at a time just like I do. You eat the same food I do. You ain't nothing. You feel like because you in that seat, especially the center seat, that maybe, look at me, maybe I got some pull. Well, I'm going to tell you what, most of the people in this county don't know my name. I ain't crap to most people. I'm going to go ahead and just take care of the big head and tell you ain't neither. Fix it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I could, since
Yes.
I'm not part of the council,
Yes.
just before we have the next speaker, before too many folks get riled up about the prayer pledge, I was looking back at the special meeting agendas, and I think what has happened is every special meeting back to 2017, which this is, it's not a regularly scheduled meeting. For some reason, the prayer and the pledge is not on the special meeting agenda, so I'm assuming Katie just used the format for the special meeting to pick it up. We received no instruction to remove anything from the agenda. So, not good that it's not on there. It should be on the special meeting agendas too, but it's always been off of them for whatever reason. Historically, it wasn't put on there, but unless we receive instructions in the future, it'd be on there. So that's an administrative mess up, and nobody told us to take it off.
Well, I and the rest of the county will be looking for that to be corrected.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Tara Honeycutt. I say the name wrong? Tara Honeycutt. Okay. Gail Rebenat, I'm sorry. Rebenacker, sorry.
Yeah, I won't be very long, but I came here to the second reading of your budget, and I also spoke to you during the break and asked that you please make sure that you consider the line-by-line review that was asked by many folks, including Mickey Haney, who came up and gave a very good presentation about all the areas that were having problems, such as missing $9,000 and lots of errors in the budget and lots of ads that just weren't understood. And one of the things that's in there is adding a lot of roles and new hires. And I don't know what the criteria is for adding those. Do we place any documentation on the criteria? Why are we hiring these folks? What are we expecting them to do? And I think by doing a line-by-line budget review before you pass this budget is very necessary so that we can understand the mistakes, correct them, and get them to the right place for balancing. If you agree to pass the budget as it is tonight, then the people that you work for will most likely remember this at the time of voting. And I will tell you personally, if you do pass this tonight, the way it is, I will vote, not vote for you. I will make sure that I will vote for the folks that do go for the line-by-line item. But if I have to help a Democrat get up here, I'm going to not reward bad behavior for you guys passing something that has not been reviewed line by line. It has been asked for by both Mr. Hart and Mr. Durham, and neither of you take the time to even want to do that. And I have to agree with Luke. You're sitting there just staring at us. I understand you can't speak back at us, but you should be doing this for the people that you work for. We don't work for you, you work for us. So please, please, take that into consideration tonight before you vote. That you may either vote to keep the earlier budget, the $49 million budget, and do some amendments during the course of the year. But you should take the time to sit down and work through it, and maybe even invite Mickey Haney in to help you do that, because it looks like he's done a really good job with that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Karen Powell.
Hi, mine's going to be fairly short because Gal's pretty much gone over it, but I just want to reiterate, I wanted to be here at the last meeting, but I actually was sick, so I couldn't make it, and I just moved here from a very Democrat state, and the reason I'm going to be getting very involved is I don't want this place to become like that, just like Luke had said in New Jersey. You don't want that. And anytime I see something like people passing a budget and you can't get the line-by-line item, I think of Pelosi. And that really upsets me that that could happen where I live, because this is supposed to be a very Republican, God-fearing, and I love it here, it's great, but I don't want this to become the other places. I don't know how it's a legal thing. I don't know what the legality of it is, but how can you pass a budget without having a line-by-line review? I've been in many different businesses. I can't imagine. But then again, in a business, you have to be responsible for people's money and do it. Government, I think, too often says, oh, it's taxes, it's okay. $7 million is a chunk of money. It's a great place to live, but it could become like other places over time. You don't want that. If these guys are asking for line by line and you guys can't supply it, there's a problem. That's a big problem. And I hope this gets into the paper. I hope a lot of people become involved because this is too great of an area to ruin. And I hope that's everybody's agenda.
Carl Rickenbacker. Rickenbacker.
I basically agree with most of the people who've come up here before. I was here for the first time at the second reading meeting, and I was very impressed with the presentation Mickey Haney gave. And basically, what he appeared to have done is he did his homework, and he appeared to have poked some major holes in weaknesses in your budget. And I think as much as the things that appeared to be wasteful spending of money, those are policy decisions. I'm not necessarily going to agree with everything that you do, but finding math errors that made it through an audit when at least one of you is a CPA, how can something like that happen? Math errors, seriously? Also, I don't see in any of the reading newspapers or I don't see any acknowledgement on the part of you folks, good, bad, or indifferent, of the issues that he identified. I don't hear you trying to deny them. I don't hear you trying, if anything that Mickey got was wrong, I don't hear anybody trying to refute or explain how he got it wrong. Just basically what he said seemed to have gone into a black hole. And I guess my feeling about it is you're increasing the budget, from everything I've heard, about $7 million. If you truly, whether I agree with everything you're doing or not, if you truly believe that what you're doing is right for the county, then you should have no problem with it being held up to some scrutiny and, let it see the light of day, be transparent, and let people see what you're doing. The fact that you're not willing to do the line by line, I hate to say it, but it almost looks like, what are you trying to hide? What are you trying to sweep under the rug? What are you trying to not let us see? If you truly believe in what you're doing, you should have no trouble putting it out there for everybody to look at. Okay, that's all I have.
Mickey Haney.
It's hard to follow up all of that, and I agree with everything you said. First off, I would like to thank a lot of the staff, the finance department, the building codes, Amanda Brock and Ms. Smith. They've been very helpful in helping me dig through the budget and find some data, some areas that was not on the transparency page. I also would like to thank Mr. Kane, Mr. Hart, and Mr. Durham. When I reached out to y'all got back to me. Even though you may not agree with my views on things, we were able to communicate openly. And I think one of the areas that we're missing in society today is trying to understand the other person first. Where are they coming from? Before you're trying to be understood. And hopefully we all can reflect on that and come up with some understanding amongst each other of what the community is saying to y'all and what y'all should be representing to the community. Luckily, Ms. Smith has set up some things for me, and actually I have a pointer here. But before we get started, so there's no difference of a definition, it's my understanding that all 5 of y'all up there claim to be physically conservative. And in that, I looked up Wikipedia again, and it says advocating for lower taxes, reducing government spending, and government debt. So that's what we should be adhering to. And I'm not only going to just bring you problems today, I'm going to throw out a few solutions for you too. And I'm going to try not to take it too long. One issue we have, if you notice, your bottom of your page is not there. Okay. Every year, our expenditures, can you minimize that a little bit? Thanks. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So it looks like every year that we have a additional revenue that the next year our expenditures will match. 2019, 2020, 2020, 2021, and so on and so forth. So that's telling me, it kind of reminds me of when I first got out of the military and come back to the States. I was going to raise a little farm, and my uncle was telling me about the hogs he used to raise and pigs. And he says, be careful with little pigs. He said they will eat everything you give them until they die of gluttony. Detroit's a good example of that. Every bit of funds they could get until they destroyed the city. We do not need that here. If you would go to the next page. So if we also look at the property tax, if everybody go back and look at your property taxes, there's been a steady increase except for last year, and I think that was due to COVID. So the property tax has been steadily increasing on us. And we may say, well, it's only, $10 here, $50 there, $100 here. The problem is, look at how many people got in the county. That's a big sum of money that we're taking away from the citizens every year. And the reason that's important, if you go to 597, I think it's the next page. The airport budget. I bet y'all saying he's on the airport again. But yes, I am, because it's the biggest waste of spending I've ever seen in my life. If you notice, the roads and bridges were here, and they stayed pretty much the same. But look how much the airport budget has grown. It's a crazy amount. It's now eating 30% of the transportation budget. And it's documented there. But no one's paid attention to that. Go to 1097. So one thing the airport budget has done is under the jet fuel revenue, they make it seem as if, and also gas revenue, they make it seem as if though they're making a huge profit on this. The problem is they're not. If you take out the waived fees, if you take out the cost of filling that jet, of providing the area for that jet to land, all those additional fees, you're only making about $100,000 on that. And that's a lot of liability for the county to take on if they put contaminated fuel in those planes. Go to the next page, please. So these fees here are very interesting. I went as far back as I could go in the transparency pages. I went to the 2017, 16, 17, or 17, 18 budget, but it's dealing with the 2017 year. Those fees have not changed since then, but yet our property taxes continue to go up. I also found a thing on the internet where the event fees have not changed since 2012, according to that page. So I'm real curious, if I keep digging, how far back are these the existing fees on those hangars? I mean, I honestly wish I could rent a T-hanger at this cost to put my farm equipment under. But that is cheap. Not only that, the ramp fees, the call-out fees, all of those things have not changed. So how can we charge additional property tax year after year after year and overlook the airport? Because of special interest group. Next page, please. So when you get down to the airport expenses, as you can see, it continuously grows. Hit the next page, please. But this is an important thing that we need to look at here. So the other revenue, at first I had no idea what other revenue was. I didn't understand what it was. How was the airport bringing in additional revenue? Well, they're not. The other revenue is primarily additional tax dollars that is given to the airport to offset their debt. So if you notice down here, they're barely breaking even. And then now we're at 189 and then 194. And this year, hit the next page, please. They're saying that they need, where's it at? You know, this is actually, I was looking at the other sheet. I've got it up here. They're actually saying that, I'm sorry, I had to pull up the wrong sheet, that they need this additional funding for game day.
Which page is that?
I don't know. I had your sheet off of January the 1st, so it's in that same document. Page 4.
Page 4 of the notes.
Give me just a second.
Okay. So while she's finding that, if there's any other place that we could look that would prove the reason that we should go line item by line item, this should demonstrate it. A lot of the, see right here, funding for overtime as well as part-time staff for football season. So I did some digging. If y'all listened to or looked at some of the stuff I stated the last time. If you look at the flight logs, the majority of those flight logs pertains to them going over to Pickens County and spending their time. They actually waive event fees and ramp fees, and call-out fees and a lot of the other stuff if you buy a certain amount of fuel, which drives up, makes it look like you're spending a lot of money on fuel. The problem with that is they're actually robbing the taxpayers of those funds, because those individuals are not spending the revenue here in Oconee County. And I'm ventured to say, and I'm actually going to dig into it and see how many of those airplanes that's parked in those hangars are actually paying property tax in Oconee County with such a very low hangar rate. Go to the next page, please. So this, where's the 3%? Unfortunately, I'm dealing with a different page. Yes, right here. Cost of living for all employees is right here. So this is through all of the departments. If you scroll down just a little bit. I'm sorry, scroll up. In my case, I'm backwards. You also see salary and wage increase throughout the different departments. Some of the departments you will see this because of additional personnel, but they're not only getting a cost of wage or cost of living increase, but they're also getting salary and wages increase in other areas. So it does not make sense to me. All right, so enough on that. I want to go over to, sorry I'm not organized any better, and talk about the new positions. The deputies, I don't have a problem with. Crime is up in this area. Drug use is up in this area. Right now, we need to have a war, flame war on the fentanyl, meth, crack, everything that's really eating at society. You see it when you drive around throughout every area in this county, whether it be the rural area or in the cities. So I don't have a problem with that, nor the other areas, but there's some areas I think that we need to look into, we need more information on. I actually had watched the Fire and Emergency Service, I forgot the name of that meeting they had on the 17th, and they had some interesting things to say. The fire marshal, according to what was on that, it sounds like they need a fire marshal. The firefighters, we'll get to here in a minute, but I'm going to play you something that came actually from that meeting. It's only 2 minutes long, so bear with me. Let's see, make sure I can grab one.
As we look through
Y'all hear that?
the whole system, it was identified that in the future there will need to be living quarters, if it be for EMS, if it be for other firefighters, if it be for any 24-hour operation for that. The county was given a building, and Amanda felt that putting that building back into service would be helpful. That is not the direct area that we plan to put the 3 firefighters. We look at the need, and the fastest growing area of the county is the Corn Shallow area. It's growing exponentially. There's 390 units for Clemson going to be full there in Harts Village after they just received the EPIC and the call volume increase. Even Clemson University is building more in Oconee. Now granted, that is still Clemson, but talking to the new chief, he wants to make sure that we are still responding, that he hasn't grown either. And his area being over by the airport where their new police department is, and all those buildings are still in our area. Technically, they are the responsibility of Clemson Fire Department, but if something goes on, it's still in Cronin County, and the direct mutual aid agreement requires us to respond to that as the volume in that area increases.
Question about that.
Yeah.
It's been brought up to my attention by one of the 21 staff guys this week that that building was supposed to be used for 21 too, but
That is not set in stone. There was discussion on what we were gonna do with that building, but it was not set in stone that we're gonna move anybody. There were discussions on where do we move people, but that's not the right place to put them, where they're sitting right now.
I mean, that's what I was gonna say. Remember how many years ago it was this?
I won't bore you with the details. Y'all can actually go and view that. Basically, what that committee is stating is that building is not in the right location to serve the needs of the county. It's on the far southern end of the county, as close as Georgia as you can get. At this time, we're going to renovate a building at a cost of $250,000 that's going to sit. That's a waste of taxpayers' money. That needs to be stricken from the budget. The other thing they brought up was the 3 firefighters. They stated that you also recommended, they was recommended 2 years ago, and you recommend they put them back in the budget. And I don't mean to call you out, I'm just bringing up facts.
That's okay, I mean,
Okay.
I put in the budget what council directs through their strategic plan.
Yeah. So, he stated that it was recommended that those 3 firefighters go back into the budget, and he's basing that on call-outs. Apparently, he said in 2018, we had 618 per month, then went to 658 to 719 to 732. The thing is, what kind of call-outs are they? It's my understanding, we're talking with some of our local firemen, that a lot of the call-outs are lift assist and medical needs. If that's the case, it would probably behoove us to look into changing the Prisma ambulance service from a 12-hour to a 24-hour to meet those medical needs. And I don't have the answer. These are just suggestions. We really need more data. We need to dig into what are the call-outs and what will best serve the county before we add these 3 young firefighters who will not be trained in the medical field for several years. So we need to look at that before we jump into the decision of hiring these additional firefighters, and make sure that it's firefighters we're needing and not additional medical response. And just to let everybody know that the firefighters, they get called out for traffic control, debris in the road, and of course fires. All of those are important calls. I think there's some room, things that can be done to help reduce the cost in some of those areas, but that's something that y'all need to look into. On that, the communications specialist, I hope it is stricken from this. There's no need for it. Actually, I spoke to one of the members up here, and they had a good solution, and that was to create a plan that's in place or needs to be put in place. And there's a lot of that in the county that we need. And speaking of plans in place, the engineer stormwater management, I myself personally don't feel that we need it. You have to look at the root cause of why these contaminants are getting into the waterways. Why are they getting onto the neighbor's property? And I've had many jobs and different jobs in the past. I do some grading now on the side. And a lot of this is because people not understanding what the requirement is and not putting up the silt fences, not putting in containment ponds. When I feel that if we file for an easement or an address, that's a very good time for them to give them a stormwater management plan. And if it's a commercial building or a general contractor, they should have a site plan for runoff. They should not be running that water off on their neighbors. But where we really fall short is after the grading's done. The silt fence is in place. Some of them are doubled. The vegetation has not had time to take root, but we never follow back up to make sure after these big storms that the silt fences are up. The homeowner forgets about it. He assumes that the contractors have done their job. I think this is something we need to push back on to the property owners. They need to understand that, and this is part of the reason why I think we need to give them the documentation, that they're responsible for that runoff until the vegetation is in there. Will it stop 100% of the runoff? No. We've had torrential downpours here. I mean, you walk through the woods, you see where the leaves are just washed to the bottom of the hill. You will have some contaminants still get in there, and there's nothing we can do about it. And the people that are in the lakes and complaining about sediment coming down, they need to realize also this year, or this time of the year, there is a lot of sediment gets in the water due to the amount of leaves, debris, and stuff, and it's just in the forest floor that's being washed down there. But I think that's one area of communication that needs to be developed that will save us some funds long-term, instead of hiring in a wastewater engineer that's, what's he gonna do most of his time? And the other thing, of all the things we should be investing in, it should be our software. We're budgeting, where are we at now, 50, 59, 56 million. And we've got such antiquated software, out-of-date software, that it does not track who changed what when, to the best of my knowledge. It does not allow you to, if you look back through the different physical years, that is not correct. We need to invest in an ERP system that will get the software where it needs to be. It's going to be a upfront cost, but looking at all these things that we can cut from the budget, heck, that's a pretty good start in getting the software where it needs to be. And no, it's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen next year. Taking on such a task is probably going to take 5 years. So we need to start now. We've identified the problem. None of us in this room can sit up here and say there's not a problem. If there's anything that y'all want to take under your hats to really improve the county, this is one area. Because what it would do, it would allow us at a glance to know how the departments are doing. Where we're at. Why is the airport not raising fees when they're losing money? And no, I'm not asking you to put your thumb and try telling the airport how to run their job. All I'm asking you to do is treat the airport like we should, and it should be an enterprise, a money-making venture for the county. And when it's not turning a profit, tell them they need to fix it. If they can't fix it, get in somebody that can. The county should not be flipping the bill for people to fly into Pickens County to spend revenue. It's wrong. It has been wrong for many years. The other thing I'd like to address is some other areas that I feel that we need to pay attention to. We've got tent cities behind Lowe's and Walmart in Seneca. This is bad all the way around. There's constant shoplifting in these areas now. There's been a few stabbings in the Lowe's parking lot. It is bad. If we want to invest money in this county, we need to clean up this county before it gets any worse. Because if this grows, it's not going to be good for the county. And I hate to say this, but right now is a very good time for us to do a baseline. We're talking about bringing the cat bus into Walhalla in Westminster. We brought the cat bus into Seneca, and to the best of my knowledge, shortly after the tent cities popped up. I think that's around 2006, 2007. The last thing we want to do is bring them into Walhalla without having a baseline. And the reason I want a baseline established is we need to have this data so we know that if we bring the bus into another area, what additional law enforcement we need to include in the budget in the overall cost. You know, it's kind of like the firefighters. The salary you see, I do not think includes their benefits.
It does.
It does? Okay. Well, that's pretty cheap then. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. But we need to look at things with the whole scope of what it's going to cost the taxpayers instead of just saying, well, we'll pay right now it's $60,000 we're paying to the cat bus. We'll pay $120,000 and bring it into Walhalla and then bring in other problems with it. The roads throughout the county are in various states of disrepair. But yet, if you go back to the transportation budget, we've been increasing the budget for the airport and doing very little for the roads and bridges. And the roads and bridges serves serves all the county, whereas the airport serves less than 3%. I actually think it's less than that. The citizens are increased wait times at the rock quarry. It's given the perception that the new crusher that we spent all this money on has really not paid for itself, and we do not want to give that perception. I don't know if it's mismanagement. I do not know if it's equipment failures. We're running items to failure instead of doing preventive maintenance. And if that's the case, we need to get a more robust work order system in place, not just for the quarry, but for the other departments too. You go down there and they give you comments like, well, we got to load her down. That's why it took me so long to get up top to load you out. Those kind of things. If you have a guy that's trying to make money and he's waiting an hour to get rock, the next time he's close to the Pickens County line or the Anderson County line or the Georgia line, he's probably going to cross over to get his rock because it will be less time spent and more money in his pocket to drive that little bit of distance. So the big revenue that the rock quarry is bringing us, if we do not do something to get their downtime decreased, and I know the outputs in the quarry right now are crazy because of all the building. We need to plan for that. If we got to run additional weekends to get a surplus of rock, that's the other thing. There's no surplus of rock. If we need to run some weekends to get some longer weekends, I know right now they shut down at 12 on Saturday, I think. We need to do that. We're losing revenue because we don't have the rock to sell. The other area is the lack of ability for convenience disposal of recyclables, furniture, electronics at the convenience centers. There's no reason with a budget this big, with all the waste we've seen pushed to the airport, with wanting to build a building just to build a building, or renovate a building just to renovate a building. There's no reason that these citizens cannot have a return on their investment, because that's what it is. The tax dollars they're giving you is an investment, and it should be treated as such. There's no reason they should not see a return on that investment. Not only should our goal this coming year should be working on the software, it should be working on getting the convenience centers to where these items can be delivered there instead of having to carry them to Seneca. If you want to reduce the litter in the county, that is one good way to go. I'm developing some property outside of Salem. I've already had a mattress dumped on me and tires. I know why the mattress was dumped. It's too big for them to haul on the car. The tire, I just think they're lazy, but that's nor here nor there. But a lot of that happens. They don't have the means to carry it. they at least would carry it over to the nearest convenience center, which is Salem, versus risk getting fined. The lack of transparency is a real big thing. Every time I dig through the numbers, I find something else. Recently, I found that the same fiscal year and different years, because it goes back over 5 years, had the wrong employee numbers on some of the line items. It makes it hard to compile data and get an accurate view. The other thing is a lot of the information is not on the financial transparency page. You can get it, but it's not there. I don't understand why it's not there. If you go back into the older records, they did a very good job of breaking down what each department had underneath them as far as assets and cost. I know it would be too big of a file, especially if it was printed out for the budget hearing, but it being digital, it should be something we should add. I should be able to look at any time and see how many fire trucks we've got active and inactive. I should be able to look at any time and see how many loaders we got down at the quarry. And speaking of loaders at the quarry, if you read the scope sheet on the quarry for the purchase of the new water truck, it said because their biggest reason, or what I got out of it, was because the pump went out on the water truck. And they had to improvise a means to keep the dust down, and ended up borrowing a truck from the county roads department, which shouldn't have been an issue. I mean, we're all in this together. The problem I see, if it's truly just an issue with the pump, buy a spare pump. It's a whole lot cheaper than a truck. And put that money into getting a loader, so that these people quit complaining about not having a loader to come up top and load them out. That way you can have a loader in maintenance, having preventive maintenance done on it, while you have the other ones in service. To me, that sounds like better money spent. But I do not know all the details. And I do make mistakes, just like y'all do. But I think with all of us working together and looking at these with an open mind and thinking outside the box, and not think like most politicians, we're throwing more money and more man hours at it, man hours, instead of start thinking about how we can work more efficiently. What can we do to increase our uptime, to reduce our downtime? What is the true root cause of some of these issues that we're trying to push manpower towards to fix? These are the questions we should be asking when, hopefully, if you do approve this budget, hopefully next year when you look at each line item, you'll ask yourself, is this really needed? There was a comment that was made in the last meeting that kind of, it still sticks in my craw. And the comment was, I've got to know what I have before I can build the budget. So that tells me we're not building a budget off of necessity. We're building a budget off of spending every dime that is given. That's completely different in companies that are trying to make money. They want to spend as little as possible. And you actually get a certain amount of praise for meeting your goals and reducing your cost. Not what I see here at the county. What we're doing at the county is we're spending every dime. Each year, as I showed you, when revenue goes up, we find a way to spend it. The next following year, our deficits match the previous year's revenue. If that's not a telltale sign of how greedy the county is, I don't know what is. And I wish that y'all would actually function as conservatives, fiscally conservatives, and go back through this budget line out by line item and decrease it back. Heck, I'd like to see it decrease back to the 2019. Now, am I saying not hire in law enforcement? No. There's plenty of other areas to cut. Am I saying not give the guys 3%? No, I'm not. I believe we've already proven that the $600,000 for the 3% increase is easily found. So today, we'll let everybody in this county know, are y'all the watchdogs of their investment of taxes, or are y'all the lapdogs? Show us how you're going to be. Show us who you really are. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, I have a letter to read.
Is that permissible?
Is this a public comment?
Yes, it's a letter that was sent to me to read on somebody's behalf.
It is.
Give me just 1 second, let me pull it up. Okay. It says, I am a resident of Oconee and have been here all my life. Never left but for a short while and realized there was nowhere like home. I hate to say this, but I am very disappointed with this council. You have been appointed by the people to serve us and our best interests, all of us, not special interest groups, not Seneca Journal or Tell Willie, or just the rich, but all. This is the Bible Belt, and do any of you believe in the Bible or God's teachings? How about love your neighbor as yourself? How about do unto others as you would have them do unto you? Does a code enforcement officer seem to fit these descriptions? How about the church and community is to help the widows and the orphans? If a code enforcement officer goes around trespassing on people's property, someone is going to be shot. You'll just escalate in bad situations. How about trying to help and love these people instead of hurting them? A code enforcement officer is not the way to go. Also, you are not listening to us when we say go back and check the budget. For this county that has the industrial base in it that we have, your budget should not be as high as what you are proposing. Do it fast, but rework the budget. And one last thing, and the reason I asked Mr. Durham to read this tonight with no name attached because of my past that my family does not know about. You see, I am a murderer. Back in the 70s, when I was stupid and naive, I killed my unborn child. I didn't have anyone telling me it was alive and that it could be adopted in love. All I had was people tell me that it was unwanted and I could do what I wanted and it was fine. Well, it wasn't. They don't tell you of the guilt and the shame that goes along with abortion. They don't tell you of the sleepless nights thinking of the baby or what it could have become if only I would have allowed it to live. I know I am forgiven through Christ and that one day I will see my baby again, but that doesn't make it right, and the utter disregard for life I've seen from this council makes me sick. From the unborn to the poor. It looks like from the outside looking in that if you're not from Kiwi Key or have money, then you don't matter. I beg to differ. We all matter. There's a new petition going around to make this county a sanctuary county for life. Please take time to consider it, not just for the unborn, but all ages, the elderly, all races. Someday soon it may pass that they want to just put elderly to sleep because they are too hard to care for. How will you feel at 85 if they say, okay, buddy, your time is up, think it can't happen? Think again. Time to take a stand. I stand for all lives matters from all backgrounds, ages, races, and economics. I hope this council will too. That's all.
All right, Mr. Durham, there's no name associated with it?
Jane Doe.
Can you have a copy to give to Katie?
I'll forward it to you.
I close public hearing 2021-01. Ordinance 2021-02. An ordinance to establish budget for the school district of Oconee County and provide for the levy of taxes for the operations of the school district of Oconee County for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. No one has signed up for public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak? If not, I close public hearing on ordinance 2021-02. Public hearing on ordinance 2021-03. An ordinance to provide for the levy of taxes for the Kiwi Fire Special Tax District and to establish the budget for Kiwi Fire Special Tax District for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. No one has signed up for public comment. Does anyone wish to speak? If not, I close public hearing on ordinance 2021-03. Matter of clarification and instruction with Mr. Root and Ms. Smith. Would you, going forward, please correct the unintentional omission of the prayer, the pledge, and moment of silence? Thank you. Third reading of the following ordinance. Ordinance 2021-01. Ordinance to establish the budget for Coney County and to provide for the levy of taxes for ordinary county purposes, for the Tri-County Technical College Special Revenue Fund, for the Emergency Services Protection Special Revenue Fund, for the Cap Road Maintenance Special Revenue Fund, for the Bridge and Culvert Capital Project Fund, for the Economic Development Capital Project Fund, for the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Capital Projects Fund, for the Debt Service Fund, for the Victim Services Special Revenue Funds, for the Capital Vehicle and Equipment Fund, and all in Coney County for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, and ending June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Excuse me, discussion. I'm sorry, discussion. That's right. Going too
Mr.
fast.
Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to amend third reading. I move that we eliminate the second code enforcement officer position in the planning department, which constitutes a reduction of $53,278, and that the real estate property tax revenues be reduced by $53,278 to reflect the elimination of that provision. And may I make two motions to eliminate positions, or do we need to
Do
discuss?
them one at a time?
Okay.
That'd be great, yes, sir.
All right.
Your second? Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor? Aye. So you got a second one?
Mr. Chair, yes. Also make a motion to remove the communications specialist position from the administration department and transfer the amount previously approved for that position up to $58,111 to the administration department's professional line item to fund a one-time study of to create a comprehensive communications plan.
Second.
Any discussion on that amendment?
Yes, sir, I would. This study that he's wanting to do, you can dial your U.S. Corps of Engineers, Lake Carlton, in that they'll give you the date, they'll give you what time they're going to be putting off power, when the water down below the dam will rise, and they'll give you the elevation. Better than that, go to Duke Power. They'll tell you to the minute what the elevation is of Lake Kiowee, Joe Cassie, and for the people that live in Catawba, they'll tell you what it is for the Catawba River. You can do all of this for probably $5 a day, and you don't need a study to do this. All you need is a telephone. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm not referring to a study, and I may have misstated that. I feel like, given my time here at the county, we need a comprehensive plan on how to communicate both internally between departments as well as with the public, and that this would be one-time expenditure, and then that plan would be implemented by administration staff. This is not a recurring expenditure, but I do feel like our communication is sometimes lacking, and I feel like that's vital to the public, that we be transparent with the public in these things. I think that a lot of folks are here today and have recently become involved, and I'm glad to see it. I think the civility is lacking with a lot of folks' comments, but I am very glad to see that folks are involved and want to be involved. But I think the fact that there's a lot of confusion about a lot of things in our budget, as well as other county operations, shows that we have a communication issue. You know, I think we need somebody to help us develop that plan, and then implement it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
On top of that, you don't always realize what you're lacking on communication until something happens very similar to the tornado, and being on the inside from, I don't know, 5, 6 o'clock that morning for 2+ weeks, you realize how difficult it is and what we're lacking on the communication side of things and how to get the message out. The amount of phone conversations I had with people and door to door at that point in time was really the best thing that we had. Public over the police driving by, but it just is very difficult when you have a situation like that. You realize what you're lacking, and it's one of the reasons why when you brought up when we discussed communication specialist, it wasn't the person that sat around and talked to the media. It wasn't the person that sat around and talked to WGOG or the Journal or anything like that. It was a person that really tried to figure out where the message is lacking, from information that is needed and requested by citizens, from FOIAs that we get across from multiple entities. It takes a lot of time from people that have a huge job that they have to take out of their day to do that. So, but being there and witnessing what we're lacking on the communication, as awesome of a job that we did, it was definitely one of those things. There wasn't a direct channel of, hey, information's coming from this. It was coming from 13 different Facebook pages. Was honestly probably the #1 source to get information out. And unfortunately, a lot of misinformation as well. So one thing that we can focus on is, what our message is, how our website looks. And I've spoken up here before I got on council, how hard it was to get information. And I don't always agree with Mr. Haney when he talks, but it is difficult to get information, and it's getting better. And this council kind of sat there and tried to do some things to make it better, and it's not perfect, and it still needs to improve. But when I see lack of a specific organization being able to deliver its message properly when everything goes down, something needs to be done. And I think that will be a proper way of doing that. And if anybody sits on here, the best thing we can do, one of the best things that we still did is the camera system and the mic system that we had in here. And that involves the public more than I've ever seen the public involved in that. And I agree with Mr. Kane. I'm grateful to have the public involved, period, that's in here, that contacts me and listens online, whether it's tonight or whether it's 3 weeks from tonight. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman. So I agree that the position for communications officer should be scrapped from their budget. I disagree with using the current $50,000 allocated for that position for the study. I think some valid points are brought up for the study. But instead of using that $50,000, then we should use the $75,000 used to study for a feasibility study to create the Swamp Rabbit Trail in Oconee County, where we do not have an abandoned railroad to work off of, such as Greenville County did or Pickens County. I mean, I can tell you how feasible it is, and you don't have to give me $75,000 to do it. That would be a wise or choice of money based on the statements that y'all just made, to use that to develop a communications plan, something that would actually benefit all citizens.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I was involved in a huge meeting. I think there was about 200 to 300 people talking about outdoor activities, similar to Swamp Rabbit Trail and things like that. Just from that one meeting, there was 5 or 6 other meetings that occurred after that, all extremely positive. And I'm not saying that 200 or 300 people is one of those things, but just bringing that up, I want to stay the focus on this amendment here. But I've been involved in at least 3 of those meetings, but I was involved with that large meeting. And I know what the revenue that's brought in, especially the smaller towns around there, and I know the impact of it. I think a lot of people had the same thought process about the Swamp Rabbit Trail, especially in Travelers Rest, had a lot of negative on it. And if you've seen what it's done to turn that city around, it's been pretty awesome. But I just want to stay on that a minute, I'm sorry.
Any other discussion?
Sure, so can I make a motion to amend a motion?
Not his motion. You need to just take the action on that motion, then you can bring it up. And
Key thing is, Greenville County had abandoned railroads that we don't have to work off of. That's all.
Any other discussion? Not all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All opposed to the amendment? Before we go any further, Ms. Brock, can you address some of the points that the public made? Are you prepared to do that now?
Yes, sir, I can. I don't know if y'all want to address them individually. I took several notes, but I don't know that they're inclusive of everything. I certainly don't want to leave anything out in particular. I was writing pretty quickly. And if there's something, a particular item that we would like to address, that's fine. If you want to just go over what I have written down, I think that would be okay as well. Mr. Moore, when you were speaking, I made the same note. I was searching on my phone, and it was in no way disrespectful to you, just to go back and look at some of the other special meetings. And I don't know when or how, I've been here 21 years, and to my knowledge, it's always been on the agenda. But at some point, it just got left off. And maybe someone at that time just didn't notice, and because, we saved a document and then recreated over and over and over again. It was not intentional at all, and I'm glad that you brought that up. The line-by-line item, Ms. Powell, sometimes our website can be a little bit difficult to navigate, but this entire line-by-line budget document is online in each one of our meetings backups. It's a lot of information to scroll through. But we have done our very best. I've opened the book at a random page just to point out something in specific. Years ago, we just had departmental expenses listed for certain things. Now we break them out into, like, this particular department, the airport. Mr. Haney, where are you? I just happened to open to the airport page. So it is line by line. And the 10 fund, which is anything in the first part of the book that is a general government operational fund, is basically the fund that is your housekeeping fund. That's where you pay your salaries, your electric bill, you do your equipment maintenance. The line by line is in every single budget document. It's on our website. I'm going to address another comment at the same time. Someone said, and I didn't write it down, that they would like to see our audits. Our audits are also online. Every single year's audit is online. It is compared to the budget. The auditor provides an opinion on how the county handles the county's money, the public's money. And we have never received a bad audit that I've been here. We have had some recommended changes for cleaner budget and to expenditure methods, but we've never had a bad audit. But for any department, it is line by line. When you go through our financial transparency page, you can also review our check registers every month. Our budget to actual numbers, we provide monthly on the website as well. So when you see a budget of $6,000 and then halfway through the year, your target expenditure for a $6,000 budget line item is $3,000, because you're 50% through the year, your target should be 50%. There'll be certain times when your target is way under or way over, and that's because on the beginning of a budget year, we issue what are called purchase orders. And what that does is encumber the money so it can only be spent for a designated thing, like our copier click, which you'll see in most of all of our departments. On August 1st, you can run a report and it appears that we've spent all the money for copier click. We haven't spent the money. We have earmarked that money because it is specific to copiers. Like, it is specific to the machines that create these books. It cannot be spent on anything else. So once that money is put into that line item, it is automatically designated through our processes so that it can't be removed for other things. The airport versus transportation expenditures, and Mr. Haney, I think I'm jumping around on some of your notes, so I'll go back to them. So the example that was up on the board was out of the general fund of the government. Transportation has two designated special millage accounts. That is the road maintenance designated millage, which brings in for the fiscal year 2022 in the proposed budget document, $2,545,000. We also have a bridge and culvert fund, which is designated funding for the replacement and repair of bridges and culverts. So the general fund covers the operational portion of only the road department. It pays your staff, it pays your gas, it pays your electricity. It doesn't pay for rock, it doesn't pay for paint, for striping, it does not pay for equipment. The Bridges and Culvert Fund this year is $1,150,000. And in addition to the regular 10 fund, which is your general government fund, for roads, your $2,967,509 would bring your total road funding in different allocated millages to $6,662,509. Let me go back to my notes page here. The revenues and expenditures matching, that is called a balanced budget. That's required by law. Your revenues and expenditures must match unless the council authorizes the use of fund balance. So if your revenues are in excess of your expenditures, you would have to reduce the mill. You can't budget for savings. That's not allowed. We can't put a line item in that says we need money for a rainy day at some point and then charge the public for that if scenario now. The balanced budget is what is ideally what a government auditing firm wants you to achieve. Your revenues and expenditures must be the same unless council is willing to dip into the fund balance. In the event that your expenditures, say 1 year you had a plummet in fees, taxes, or who knows, I mean, something terrible can happen, a dam break, and you wipe out a certain portion of your population that's eligible to pay their taxes, which God forbid, I'm not wishing that, but I'm just thinking of an enormous catastrophic event. So if your revenues were higher, or your expenditures were higher than your revenues, that's where that rainy day fund comes in. And if you'll look on page, and Katie, I think you can bring this page up, page 3. Oh, it's Mr. Haney brought this up. Scroll down to the bottom and zoom in for me. Okay, so in that green line, the net change in fund balance. So in the year 2017, Oconee County estimated that it was going to bring in a little more than $34 million in property tax. We actually did bring in more than that. So with that savings, you'll see the can't see that screen, you're gonna forgive me here. $2,504,885. That was the excess money that the county brought in over their anticipated revenues, or probably, is where the expenditures weren't quite as much as we anticipated them to be, and the revenues were a little bit higher, so that kind of evens out and creates your fund, the amount that you would transfer to your fund balance. If you'll look in the budget year, the actual budget year for the actual numbers, in 2018, we took a $3.5 million hit to the fund balance. So there is a reason to have that rainy day fund, and it makes sense, and you would want to be able to budget for that, but legally, we have to have a balanced budget. So your revenues and your expenditures must be the same for budgeting processes. Last year, when we established the budget, you'll notice that in September, when we did the budget amendment, it was because we had more updated information from the federal government and from the state government, because both of them have postponed their budget processes due to the coronavirus. So in September of last year, we waited on the auditor to establish the value of the mill before we increased that budget from the previous year, because we had to have certain numbers from the state. The auditor gets certain numbers from the state and from tax calculations for properties and vehicles. Does anybody have questions on that? And if I talk too fast, and they
Excuse
slow
me.
me down, it's kind of what
Brandon, we
I'm
can't take any questions.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, can't take questions. Now I'm gonna keep going. The property tax increase on page 5, I just jotted it down, so. Page 5. I don't see it. I think, I'm sorry?
Is it on page 6?
I think Mr. Haney was referencing the fact that property taxes were supplementing the airport, because that's where the airport transportation revenue is. For any department that brings in revenues that are not generalized and specific to that department, say clerk of court, for instance. The clerk of court brings in revenues from 3 to 4 different sources. When the county receives revenue that are not source designated, revenue producing departments share the revenue expense that's coming back in, because a portion of that undesignated revenue or unplanned revenue from time to time is only attributed to revenue producing departments. It's a way to show that any department that has an expenditure shares that expenditure, and that any department that produces revenue shares that revenue. Program revenue is specific to departments that are designated production of certain revenues. So like at the airport has 5 to 6 revenue line items. They have miscellaneous items for resale, which could mean baseball caps and t-shirts. Then they have Jet A, which is jet fuel. Then they have avgas, which is avgas, obviously. They have hangar rent, which is for the spaces where the airplanes park in the large T-hangar buildings. They have ramp fees, which is what you would charge during a non-event. They have overweight fees, call-out fees. But if they have other miscellaneous revenue, say we purchased a lot of coffee and they sold coffee. We don't have a coffee line item because they only bring in $10 or $11. We still have to put that in a revenue code somewhere in that department. It's a miscellaneous revenue department. I already addressed the airports and roads and bridges. Mr. Haney's comment regarding the fee increases for the hangar leases, those had been discussed by council previously. Mr. Haney, I'm sure you were still on council, or you were on council at that time. We had former council members that were adamantly against increasing the hangar rent, even though we had brought it to council twice for consideration. It was just shot down in the past. I'm really glad that came up. It is time to look at that again, and it doesn't mean that that cannot be done throughout the year this year. The ramp fees are only waived with a minimum purchase of fuel. The airport did not have the greatest year last year, and you'll see some increase in expenses for football games, part-time and overtime. Another one of those expenses is the fact that we have started utilizing a mobile ATC, like an air traffic control unit, because the number of flights that are coming in and the liabilities that those planes coming in a short time may have. I do anticipate the airport revenue to start increasing now that we have the West Apron expansion completed, and in the future we'll have the ability in real estate now to look at the construction of additional corporate or T-hangars on that cleared out space. positions, the deputies, fire marshal, I think was discussed pretty elaborately. The communication, the plan, not the person, that's already been discussed by Mr. Kane. And the engineer. So I think there has been possibly some miscommunication or a misunderstanding of what the stormwater manager / engineer is. In reality, we need to think about that in the other direction. It is an engineer who has the responsibility of stormwater management. It is not a stormwater management person who can do engineering. So flip those primary roles and think about the county utilizing an engineer. Recently, we have had to replace an enormous culvert on Hoyt. We use an outside engineering firm for roads and bridges. We use an outside engineering firm for planning. We use an outside engineering firm for the airport. We use an outside engineering firm at times for the rock quarry. It would behoove the county to have an engineer on staff. In the same light that it would, Mr. Reed, I'm gonna brag on you just for a second, that we didn't have a legal department before. We used outside counsel for everything that we did, and that cost to the county and the citizens was enormous. So bringing an engineer in-house, and I do want y'all to think about that. I'm not hiring a stormwater manager. We're hiring an engineer that would be responsible for stormwater management. The strategic plan outlined by council in February, I don't have the minutes in front of me. I think it was February 19th, 10th. 19th? Okay, perfect. My memory did work. Address the need for a future stormwater manager in moving forward, because the state notified us of some upcoming changes at the Department of Health and Environmental Control. The stormwater management part would be a responsibility of the engineer, a secondary responsibility. The primary responsibility would be engineering. And the reason we put that position in the road department, typically you'd put a stormwater manager in the planning department. But the reason we put the position in the road department is that is where we would need and use the skills of an engineer the most, which would increase the efficiency of how quickly we can do road maintenance, culvert repair. You all know our terrain here. We have 671 miles that Oconee County maintains. And that's an enormous, enormous responsibility with our terrain. Last Friday morning, I went with our road department manager to look at a road that scared me. And as we're getting people moving here, they don't mind hiring the dozer or the trucks to bring in the materials to build their homes, but those dozers and trucks do terrible things to our roads. And once they get their home established, and those trucks come and go several times, an okay road suddenly turns into a bad road, and it happens quickly with the amount of rainfall that we have. Having an engineer on staff would really help the road department be able to be more responsive, and I think we could do it more efficiently and cheaper. So I just want to make sure that the stormwater part would be a responsibility of the position, not the position being vice versa. Let's see. The tent cities,
No questions, sir. Sorry.
I know, and I'm sorry about the tent cities. I think it's a comprehensive problem. There's no simple solution. I think we need to remember they are human beings, and there's some lifestyle choices there probably that have contributed. There's some background issues that probably have contributed. This would be one of those places where a group of people, much like our small group that we work with in Utica, could address making lives and finding some options for solutions for the tent cities. Government ERP software we're currently looking into. It's really interesting, Mr. Haney brought that up at the same time. And the water truck for the rock quarry. So the water truck was originally in the budget you were looking at this evening. The pump, it was the reason that it came to you before the budget. The truck is old, it has air brakes, it's dangerous. I would be happy to take anybody out to look at that water truck. We did buy a used water truck. I think Mr. Hart even gave us kudos on the purchase of that. The reason we brought that to you prior to the budget passing though, and the reason that it came to you prior to this being approved was because of the pump going down. And that purchase needed to be approved before we meet again in July. So that was a timing factor, not so much as just the pump went out. It was already on the replacement schedule. It just moved it up on the request for that replacement because the pump had gone out prior to the replacement schedule being approved. Does that make sense? Did I miss anything? Anybody have a note up there of anything I missed?
I think you covered it.
Your asset sheet that you, in strategic planning, where you talk about department by department, the assets that they, vehicle-wise, kind of discuss such.
We're not familiar with that.
That's what he was asking about, having something to where what's in service, what's not in service. We send a lot to the sale, but what we actually own in the county.
An asset listing.
Right, but by department, I don't think we've ever done that, have we?
We've not even put it on the transparency page.
Okay. That may take considerable time to divide out by
But we do have
department.
an asset sheet for the county.
It's on an insurance asset sheet. So there are certain things after they live out their lifespan, say certain fire trucks. It's still on there, but it's not covered by certain insurances. Dividing those out by department would be extremely difficult, but doing a county asset sheet with county ID numbers on them, that would not be difficult at all.
I know that there was, when we were talking a couple of years ago about funding the capital equipment replacement, there was it's a very long spreadsheet. I don't remember, it might have been 40 pages, but.
That's exactly the one I'm referring to.
Yeah, that-
We can totally put that online,
that can
but
be
it
made.
is not divided out by department and function. I mean, there are some things that are like, what comes to mind is the confusion on how we used to name vehicles and then how, and I believe Dwayne's here. So we have like a C3, and when it got moved to another department, say at one time it was C3, if it got moved to another department, they renamed it D1. If it got moved to another department from there, it became 101.27. So it's very hard to figure out on some of the older asset sheets. Now, all of our new inventory, we have our way of doing it, and with our Managers Plus software, I think we're getting more streamlined in that, but prior to that, we literally just did in-house spreadsheets. And it was very difficult to track certain things.
Well, it would be nice to have, even if it's 40 pages online,
Oh, we can put that on there
so
tonight.
that the taxpayers can see what the county owns.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We have an actual asset sheet. It's just not by department. I just
Right,
want to be clear on that. I mean, we totally have an asset sheet. And we do list them out like, for rural fire, say brush 7, typically is for this department. Administrative 3 is for this one. Sheriff's, obviously, they're for the sheriff's office. It's just if you wanted to go back and track, say, if you wanted to know where a certain vehicle, where this vehicle is today, or where it came from. Well, right here is called C1, right here is called D3, and then this would be T6. And it's hard to track from like 93, 94 era to now. And we do have vehicles that old.
If we do put the 40 pages online, we'll need to make sure we keep it up to date. Take things off, this comes off and add things.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And we do that via the title transfer.
And come up with a system where we can track it by department.
We're working on that now. We've got some new software at vehicle maintenance, and we are pretty excited. That's one of the increases that was in your line by line, is for us to implement the software program, both for work orders and asset tracking inventory. How we do work orders now, well, standardly, if we do a work order, it's simply a work order, but for them, and Dwayne, correct me if I'm wrong at any time, typically, because all county drivers have a fuel card, we have to put in your mileage in order to be able to get fuel. And when you're at the tank, you have to actually key your mileage in. That sends a signal back to them every 3,000 miles, okay, it's time to schedule this one for an oil change or whatever that service is per mile. We do have certain vehicles that get serviced on a regular schedule plus mileage, like hourly vehicles, large equipment, and that sort of thing. But if you had, like, if I got a flat tire, I would have to call in a regular work order and it would be put in this new software. And it helps us keep track of how much we're spending on maintenance per vehicle, so that when we bring a vehicle to you or a piece of equipment to you and say, you know, we're looking at $300,000, but we spent $155,000 fixing it last year. And if it's getting to where that balance is no longer attainable, then we know that even though it's on a replacement schedule for a later date, that it may be time to bump that one up on a priority.
And then one more thing, the Oakway building, because if I think what I heard correctly from the recording, was Scott Crown was talking, that we're refurbishing a building just in case we might need it.
The refurbishment of the building would have to be completed whether it's used by emergency services or not. It was a former cabinet shop. I don't know if this is a good time to bring that up, but we have a really bad habit of not maintaining county property. Please don't laugh at me, Tom. It hurt my feelings. Since I've been administrator, and you all have, I have brought you repair after repair, roof replacement. We've torn out sheetrock, we've replaced ceilings, we've had to redo our bathrooms. If we're gonna take the ownership of a building that we know that we may need in the future, we must get it to a baseline of a place where we can maintain it with a maintenance plan going forward. Otherwise, we should just give the building away. Because if we do not maintain that building, and if we don't get it to a place where it can be maintained, there would be no use for us to try to do anything with it in the future. And I believe there's a structure just a few blocks from here on Main Street that is pretty evidence of that.
The main thing with that is just keeping it dry. But with that building, you pretty much have 3 emergency buildings within sight of each other. 3 emergency services
Correct.
buildings within sight of each other. With the rescue squad, the fire department, and then this building, for whatever purpose it'll serve.
And any decision about that building would still come before council. Any decision about expenditures for that building in excess of $49,999 would still come before council for consideration.
And he brought up some really good points about call-out volume increasing. Do we know what that volume is? Is it fire, EMS, lift assist, like you mentioned?
We do. You have a committee coming up on July 20th, I believe. If you'd like to discuss that, then we'd be happy to bring that data to you. That's something that we have implemented for the new software for the Active 911, you know how we do the volunteer check-in tracking. I'd be happy to ask Chief Crane to bring those numbers to you. I will say that there is a very responsive unit there in the Oakway community, and they had the fastest turnout gear putter-oner Saturday at the event, which was great.
And the reason why I asked that is, if we're gonna put the money into emergency services, if the data says we have increased call-outs, but say that increased call-out is EMS related versus fire, then instead of 3 firefighters, then that should be EMS or whatever, right? We should have data to back up which way we're going.
Right, so certain EMS data, like Prisma data, may or may not always be available to you because they have their own 911. They do their own dispatching. City of Seneca does their own dispatching as well. There's certain overlap in some of that. It's not all exclusive of one or the other. But like, the county does have the 911, active 911 that we use as part of our dispatch software. And I don't have a way to track it on my phone. I can see the calls that come up, but we can track and show trends and data, types of calls. I think I heard the word lift assist earlier. There are a lot of those. Trees down in the middle of the night, a lot of those.
And if I may, just.
And I know those are not the same, and sitting in this room is not the same as a fire per se. But to a responder, they go out when they're toned.
If I may just kind of go back, you addressed this, but I'm a little bit confused. The airport ramp fees, so it's waived if they fuel up.
Correct.
Is that 365 days a year or just when there's a special event
That's
declared?
Well, this year there's 6 games?
So
So
that's-
that's 359 days this year. Only on game days are they called event fees. Because typically, if you're not coming in on game, if you're not coming for the game,
Yeah.
a normal aircraft would not want to come into our airport without being game day traffic. It's a very busy airport. I did have a question or comment rather. There's no way for anyone to get a flight log of anybody unless you're gonna follow them by car once their plane lands. They can fly AFR or VFR into our airport and there is no log. You can sit out there and track tail numbers, I guess, but there's no way to know where these people are going after they leave the airport property, unless you follow them. About 60% of our Jet A and regular maintenance sales belong to industries in Oconee County. Duke Energy is one of them.
Mr. Root had something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's just a quick parliamentary point of order. I want to make sure it's clear on the questions from the audience issue. During, as y'all have this on the floor right now, you've had a motion in a second. Y'all can specifically, the chair or the majority of council can specifically call someone from the public if you believe that'll help your deliberation. Staff or even council can't just create an open forum. So that's what I was trying to call out.
Okay.
Mr. Durham, you had
Just one more thing real quick. So the stormwater engineer is so it's a dual role, a regulator role and an engineer. Is that the way I understand it? They're gonna perform a regulatory role as well as highway engineering?
The engineer would be the primary role, the management of stormwater. Because, and when we talk about stormwater manager, we're not talking about inspecting silt fences. You don't have to be a stormwater manager to do that, because we don't have a stormwater manager now, and we regular and routinely inspect silt fencing and properties upon new construction sites. That's a lot of what our planning office, and bless their hearts right now, because it's an office of 4 operating on 2. They have been doing that. That's been a role of theirs this entire time. The stormwater manager is to develop a stormwater plan for Oconee County. If you look under the stormwater management, under the DHEC tab, you'll see that it's a more large scale. It's almost like a floodplain manager. It's a larger scale. It's not going to a property and saying your silt fence fell down. You don't have to be a stormwater manager to do site inspections now. Primary focus, again, the engineer that would do the stormwater management plan. We all know that that's coming in the future. It will be a regulatory issue in the future. But the county will have to have some sort of stormwater management plan.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I don't know what our vote is. Are we fixing to vote on the
The amendment.
ordinance or just the amendments? What?
We voted on the amendments.
Right.
So it's the ordinance as amended.
Okay,
Is
well, I've got an
discussed.
amendment then I want. Benjamin Franklin is given credit for this proverb or saying. It's a penny saved is a penny earned. If we could back up to last year, in last year's budget, that meant we'd be saving $7 million. So as my amendment, I'd like to abolish this budget that we have right now and go back to the 2019.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the amendment?
So if we go back to 2019, at that point in time, we could do a thorough review and all this wish list we got, we could get down to the nuts and bolts of what is really needed, such as law enforcement, other public safety issues, and then amend the budget at that time with those necessities.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, so we would be, cutting out the additional officers, cutting out any additions that we have in here. Let's see, cutting the raise out. Taking the magistrate out, make sure what else we got. We also have some capital, let me get my capital list. That'd be the fire trucks too, Ms. Brock?
That would include fire trucks.
That would include the fire trucks.
We would have to keep the money in for the lease that was approved last year because that's a commitment.
Okay. And that would take out the Baylor, solid waste. And it would take out the additional scales at solid waste.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I'm not mistaken, we did this last year. I think Mr. Elliott recommended this, and it was back in, I think he said September that we amended this. We can amend and put those other people back in. But right now, we've got people out here that they don't understand how we jump in this budget from up to $7 million, and I don't either. Thank you.
Okay, over the last several years, we've done things in the budget. Over the last several years, we've done things in the budget to help our employees earn a living wage and add to emergency services for the health and safety of our citizens. We are fortunate that our county is growing, so we've been blessed with additional revenue. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, again, and to reiterate, I don't think all members maybe heard me, but I don't think myself or Mr. Hart's taken a too hard of a line, and what we asked for from the beginning was, as a council as a whole, a thorough line-by-line review. And we're against the clock now to where we have to pass a balanced budget, and we can do so by doing what Mr. Hart has suggested, and then we can take the time to come in here and spend a day as a council, go line by line, and make sure we preserve and defend taxpayers of this county's money and make sure that they're getting a return of investment for what they invest. And that's what we're asking for. You know, it's not, no, we don't want this position or that position. There may be some we don't want. Maybe some as a council as a whole, once we're in a room, all five of us plus the staff decide, you know, maybe that's not the best case. I mean, just today, we've removed two positions that 2 prior meetings, everybody was hard line, we've got to have, you know, but that's the type of work we need to do. And as a council as a whole, we can do that, not fight each other, but be defenders for the taxpayers. That's all.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Elliott, 2 years ago, when you was campaigning, you stated that you was a PCA and that the CPA, and that you would be able to spot wasteful spending and useless spending. At that time, I was right proud to think that that would happen, but I'm beginning to see now. I don't see anybody that can see any wasteful spending outside of me and Mr. Durham.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Elliott, Mr. Chair. I think this is the first year that we've had a very succinct schedule of differences and notes for the general fund.
Yes.
Ms. Brock and Ms. Price, thank you for preparing that. And it provides a very, I think, quick overview of exactly what the changes in the budget are for y'all to decide whether or not they're priorities. Excuse me. And we've had several budget committee meetings where I think there was opportunity to do a line-by-line review, and I don't know at what point in the budget process we start doing line-by-line reviews as council members, or if we rely on the general public to do those line-by-line reviews for us. And I appreciate Mr. Haney. We've had some very good conversations over the past couple weeks, and I've talked with other constituents as well about things in the budget. Some things we'll have to agree to disagree on, but you know, I am open to changes. But you don't get this far down the road and then say, oh, let's just adopt the budget from last year. The reason we adopted the budget from last year was because coronavirus was coming in. We didn't know what it was going to do. We didn't know if it was going to kill 50,000 people in the county or if it was going to not kill anybody. Unfortunately, it did kill a few people, but it did not have the fiscal impact that we're concerned that it would. And so that's why, that was an emergency situation. That doesn't relieve us of the responsibility going forward of budgeting based on anticipated revenues. There's no tax increase in this. There are fee increases, and I see some folks nodding out there. And those are things that we can talk about and really should have talked about prior to this meeting and the past two readings. I hate to see any revenue increases at the risk of being called a non-fiscal conservative. I have voted for, I believe, 2 millage increase in the past. And over this is my, going in my 8th budget cycle. Those were those were tax increases. I'll wear that. They included properly funding our vehicle, our capital equipment replacement plan that has been staff has been begging for years, as we talk about replacing equipment rather than repairing things that are well beyond their useful life, and it costs a lot more to maintain those pieces of equipment once they go past their useful life. Also, we funded the community, the taxpayers demanded that we fund officers in all of our schools, school resource officers. Those positions cost money, and there's not always $700,000 you can just cut out of a budget, or $2 million you can just cut out of a budget. And you know, I wear that politically, and I don't wear it as a badge of honor. But I'm not going to hide behind saying I haven't done. You know, I'm not proud that we had to do that. But once you get in this seat and you spend a lot of time going through this stuff, and this being my 7th or 8th one, it's not always as wasteful and big government as folks think. And I do believe we have got to be as transparent as humanly possible as an organization. And I'm thankful that folks are taking an interest in this, because there's many times we would only have a few people in here. And I am grateful for that. But just because some folks are angry about it now doesn't mean that we throw out this budget and say it's full of pork or whatever. There are very legitimate expenditures in here, and fortunately we are seeing growth in the tax base. That's always been the goal. Grow the tax base so you don't have to raise taxes. Bring investment to Oconee County so we don't have to raise taxes. A large portion is paid by our industrial base, our businesses, and our second home rental property owners, and that's where, I mean, frankly, the vast majority of the tax dollars comes from. I don't believe that anyone will see a tax increase as a result of this. I mean, they shouldn't. This is truly kind of what we've been working towards, is let's let the investments that we've made in economic development fund increases in revenue so we don't have to raise taxes ever again, God willing. I hope that never has to happen in Oconee County. But prices are going up on things, as we know, and federal policy drives a lot of that. But I would ask for specific things, and we'll disagree on. I think the feasibility study is for the Greenway throughout the county is a very good expenditure of funds. I know people will disagree with that philosophically and say the government's not in the business, or should not be in the business, of providing walking trails or biking trails or sidewalks or anything like that. I disagree. I think we should provide those recreational opportunities for folks. I think we should invest in our parks. Sometimes that's the only vacation some people get, is go to the county parks. And we're going to have to just agree to disagree on those philosophical differences. But I would ask going forward, and we will have an opportunity going forward to look at this budget before the tax bills come out in November, to see, or October, excuse me, to see what the millage is going to bring in this year when the auditor does her report. And we have the opportunity to amend it. But we can't just say, well, let's just throw it all out because it increased. You discount the fact that there are very valid expenditure increases in here, and staff, additions of staff because we are growing, and cost of living is increasing. I mean, I beg for y'all to state specific things in this budget that you would like to see change.
Mr. Chairman, so, there's been some valid points brought up. And on May 18th, when we had the first readings, when me and Mr. Hart started asking to pump the brakes and have a line-by-line item review, that's been 35 days. That was ample opportunity. And that is why Mr. Hart right now is asking to go back a year to then have a balanced budget pass, and then we can review these items line by line. Because as you said, many are valid. And as far as the Swamp Rabbit Trail, Mr. Brock, who funded the Swamp Rabbit Trail?
I believe Greenville Health System.
So Greenville Health System, not the county government.
Any sales tax, they had multiple.
Yeah,
There's private donors.
the city of Greenville just recently invested more.
Public
Sorry, I
donor.
didn't know the entirety of that.
That's fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank Mr. Kane for bringing up, because I had a question here to all the people. How often have you heard, we need to increase the tax base so that the taxes will stay low? The way they're spending money, that's not going to keep the taxes low. You're going to be faced with a tax. And as long as these people think in have the mentality of it's not my money, it doesn't matter, you're going to get this type of stuff. All I'm trying to do is bring it down to have a little common sense about it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hart, how many millions of dollars have we spent on sewer, which I support, in District 5?
None yet.
How many have we allotted in the budget for sewer?
I think we've allotted probably $4.5 million, I'm hoping.
And based on that versus my district, what is the difference between that? It doesn't matter.
No,
Because
no,
it doesn't
you've
matter.
got
Well, hang on,
1.3
listen.
million.
I'm just listen to me real quick. What I'm saying is I believe in spending our taxpayers' money properly, even if it's not in my district. But to stand up here and say that you're not spending money in your district, or you're conservative, when honestly, probably if we added it up, the most money being spent is probably in between Seneca and District 5, which I support, sewer. It needs to get to exit 4 too. I support that, and I'll stand with you and support that as well, because that is the future of the county and diversifying our economy for long term, so we don't have, you know how many other counties are not in the situation that we're in? Because this council has done a really, really good job. And I think there's a little bit of confusion sometimes of how we do the budget. And I saw this today when I got, a friend of mine asked me one thing, I don't see where the budget, you have to go in and actually look at the budget committee. And Mr. Chairman, we probably should change that out a little bit so the budget workshop is easier, because it's like, when's the first time that somebody could lay hands on the budget? And it was on 4/12 of 2021. It's when the actual, and really the budget hasn't changed much from that. We had a strategic plan review on 3/19. We had a budget meeting on 4/12/2021. And I agree, Mr. Dermott's statement that, when you first get this stuff in front of you, it's a lot. We had a second meeting on 5/4. There wasn't any questions really asked on there. I've met and gone over the budget several times throughout the year. It is a lot to understand. But this is not, it doesn't magically come in here on first, second, and third reading and boom, it's done. This is good conversation. We don't always have to agree up here. This can be a budget workshop. Session 1 could be a budget workshop. My question was, what do y'all want to change? Y'all brought some stuff, we're here on third reading, that you want to change. Mr. Kane has brought some things to change. And, oftentimes Mr. Hart during his tenure with me, we've changed some things throughout the budget. Each reading is a workshop. Yes, we have other things where we don't take action on those, but I just want people to understand it didn't magically come before council on first, second, and third reading, and here we are. There is budget, if you look under the budget committee, there is those workshops, and I believe everybody was present for those workshops. So now we can set up more. Whoever gets elected to be chairman next year can add 2 or 3 more. The problem is we used to have 4 or 5 of them, and half of them got canceled before I got on here because they only wanted to have 2. But when the statement was made, if I'm not mistaken, is there any other questions? There was no, I got a question, and that was on the 5/4/2021. And so when you got into first reading, there was no changes brought forth. It was just, I want to go back to this and I want to go back to that. The problem is if you don't, this takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time for my family. It takes a lot of time for my business to go through this. And I'm not wasting anybody's money. It's honestly, the taxpayers' money is more valuable than any money that I have. But I want to make sure that when I'm sitting up here and when I'm not sitting up here, that everybody can look back and go, hey, we're actually headed in the right direction. And council has fought to get in this direction in the right thing. The millions of dollars that we've spent in sewer down there, I pray to God, and I think it's a smart thing, that it'll pay off in the long term. But it is an investment, a long-term investment. But it's millions of dollars that we spent out there for that. We've actually put money back in the fund balance. I inherited a budget that had multiple revenues that were put in place that were unfunded. Some of them were unfunded by the state, and some of them were unfunded by council that we had to go through. The fire trucks, the vehicles staring you down in the face. I'll own a tax increase too, because it's the right thing to get us back to where we need to do. It's not for my gain. I can think of 1,000 different things better to do than to spend 25 hours, but I do it because it's valuable to this county and it's valuable to the citizens of this county. I don't always agree with everybody, and that's okay. You shouldn't always agree with me. That's part of government. But we shouldn't sit up here and hate each other either, or especially under misunderstandings. This is a hard job. And, I respect more people that put their name on the ballot, win or lose, than I do somebody that sits on there and throws popcorn at you from behind their computer. So let's work together, bring some stuff forward to change in this. That's what we're here to do. September, we can continue to do stuff, but just to throw it back because, I don't really have any changes when a lot of this stuff is needed. The airport, it's not in my district, it's in District 5. I support the airport 100%. The things it does for our industry is unbelievable. There's a lot of things that other counties are very, very jealous of the things that we have. And when people sit up here or allow somebody to badmouth a specific department, it bothers me because these people spend their life working at these places. They're not perfect, but it is an amazing asset to have. And Oconee County is blessed to have the assets that we have. And, I stand by every dollar we spend at the airport. I stand by every dollar we spend at the quarry. Is it perfect? No.
Any other discussion? We do have this amendment to vote on.
So, real quick, so the first meeting, line item by line item. And then the next council meeting was the first reading of the budget. And as far as people coming out here and getting upset, hurt my feelings, it doesn't hurt my feelings. I mean, my job is not to represent the county government to y'all, it's to represent y'all to the county government. That's all.
Okay, we do have the amendment. Any other discussion?
I'm sorry.
Is this Glenn's amendment?
Yeah, this is Mr. Hart's amendment. Yes.
Could you restate the motion? I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is.
The motion, go ahead.
I wanted to do away with the budget that we're at and go back to the 2019 budget that we were using last year this time.
And one more statement, as I said previously, I fully support a cost of living raise for the employees. Just because you work for the county doesn't mean that you don't have a right to earn a living. And that, to me, is not a political issue. They're not pawns in this. if we go back, like Glenn says, really all we're saying is, because we disregarded our calls going back to May to do a line item review, we can pass that budget, be a balanced budget, satisfy the law, and then we can go in and review and make sure what we're spending is what's needed. That's all.
So if it's been 35 days, what changes do you propose that we're making? I mean, or do we need, is it gonna be September? Like,
Again.
what changes are you recommending?
I'm not gonna go down this rabbit hole with you again.
No,
Like we
I'm-
did after the first meeting. I'm standing my ground. I'm asking for it as a council to line item by line item review. I'm not gonna sit here and just throw stuff, see if it sticks on the wall.
Okay, so are we ready for a vote?
I have a question
No questions from the audience. Sorry.
for Ms.
I'm sorry, no questions. I'm sorry.
Hang on one second. If you would, please come to the podium, because I can bring somebody in that can clarify.
You'd be appealing his decision, so you'd need a majority. So, yeah, three of them. If you have three people say, yeah, please come up and address us.
Where three people like to take questions from the citizens and the taxpayers.
Oh, that's fine.
My name's Josette Holcomb. Not a public speaker, but I don't understand all that's going on, but I was looking at Mr. Haney's paperwork. I believe you addressed it as well. In 2017, you were saying that we were in the black $2 million. Is that correct on that page? And then in 2018, we were in the red. Was that $1 million? But then the following years, we've been back in the black again. And if we keep the budget that we have right now, wouldn't that possibly still leave us?
May I address the speaker, please? I just want some clarification on what
Yeah.
page. Is this what we're talking about right here?
Yes, yes. You said this is like, we're in the red, we're in the black.
Opposite.
Yeah,
Opposite.
black, red.
Okay.
So then,
Katie, can you please
Then
put
in
up
2000
page 3?
in 2019-20,
So we can see that, okay.
so in 2019, 2020, our budget is in the black, $1,019,000. That's what I'm reading, and then $3 million in 20.
Correct.
So if that's correct, then what's wrong with our budget if we're in the black? You know what I'm saying? I could understand if our budget were in the red.
So there are a number of factors that contribute to those changes. One thing is, since one of our largest costs is personnel, what we do on a quarterly basis is run reports that says, okay, who's gonna be retiring, who's gonna do this. During that year, we had double the amount of retirees. Some of us have joined us this evening. And those savings are not calculated into that. So you're talking about cumulative savings that you can't foresee because they're based on individuals' decisions to remain or leave the government at that time.
What happens with that money that's in them? Does it roll over?
It goes to the fund balance. It goes into like the savings account. That we have, the county has a fund balance policy. What policy number is that? Mr. Reed, you know offhand what that policy number is. We do have a policy the county council established.
It just seems like to me that budget that
You would
worked in
think
19 and
so.
20
You
could
would think
probably
so.
still work for us again.
With the inflation that we're looking at, I can't see that happening in real life. There were 2 items that were budgeted for in the 1920 year that could not be purchased in the 1920 year because legally we can't purchase anything after June 30th.
Right.
One of those things was a large piece of equipment at solid waste. The availability of that piece of equipment was just not there. So instead of rolling those funds over to the next year, what we did was re-budget for that allocation, but that unexpended amount went back to the fund balance, which is, I don't want to call it a savings account because that seems like it's not the legal way to say it, but it is a fund balance. It is a reserve fund for the county to operate on should we meet a revenue deficit in an expenditure overage. Does that make any sense?
Sort of. I'm not
Okay.
accounting wise, but
It's a very
It just-
comprehensive, like, cog.
yes.
And you'll see, with the expenses as the county continues to grow, as our population And one of the things I didn't address earlier, and I hope you don't mind me rambling just a little bit, is that we strive to meet the expectation of our citizens. When our citizens call and say, hey, I've got a tree down, we don't go get it next week. We go get it right now.
Well, I know, I called last week and got the road cleared out by my house, so I know exactly how quickly they.
But it's the expectation that the citizens have established, and it's our commitment to continue to meet that expectation. If we want to become second-class service, then we can certainly do that by cutting expenses to provide a second-class service. And I'm not saying that cutting anything out of the budget would create second-class, but I think a part of what we're leaving out here when we're talking about county departments, specifically individual departments.
Well, I don't think Mr. Hart or Mr. Durham would be objective to increasing our budget. It's just the amount that it's being increased is what's in question. It's just
right
above and beyond.
I understand that.
Ma'am, what's your name?
Josette Holcomb, JOSETHOLCOMB.
Elizabeth asked me.
Thank you. The other thing that doesn't pertain to any of this is I've watched the meetings online and I can't hear squat hardly. I mean, I'm looking like, okay, I think he's talking. So I don't know if you said something about an intercom system or something.
See the green lights, those are microphones.
And I may sound fine now, but when I'm standing at the back of the room, I was having trouble hearing, and when I was on my computer, I was having trouble hearing as well. So just wanted to throw that out.
It's not every day we have encouragement to yell at each other. Thank you.
Well, I don't have a problem with my voice being heard.
Right.
I don't disagree with what you're talking about here. We're working on that sector of it to be a little bit louder, especially when the speak.
Yeah, when she turned around, I could hear a little better.
We're, from the audio's gotten better. Sometimes it still is within the computer. I have a computer that's similar to that, and I have one that'll blow it. You can hear a pin click or anything. But this is a new system. We're still tweaking it out to make it better, but used to you could never hear the speaker.
I'm that squeaky wheel, so if I can tell you that it's so-so, then maybe we can work on that too.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, the fund balance policy is section 2-476.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I see all kind of hands going up. We did have a public hearing, and so, I'm
Well,
sorry.
I would like for Mr. Haney to come forward because he presented a lot of information. And he had a question when Ms. Brock asked him, so I would like for Mr. Haney to come forward. I would vote yes for Mr. Haney to come forward.
We already voted for everybody to be able to be
No,
heard.
no, sir. It has to be done, I'm sorry, it has to be done individually and individual speakers. It wasn't for everyone.
Not what you voted on.
I have a budget question.
Hang on one second, Ms. Adams. Do we have a vote to allow Mr. Haney to come forward?
I'm here all night. That's fine.
This is a very good opportunity to answer some questions. First off, if you would bring back up page 3. So what I was talking about was not the balanced budget. What I think we had a communication failure. I was talking about every year, the year before when we have a revenue increase, that the next year we increase the expenditures to match that previous year's revenue. So we're constantly growing the budget. The other thing is roads and bridges. Why is it important on the salary side to increase that substantially? Yeah, we're putting money in for the gravel, the culverts, the paving, but we're not adding personnel to meet all of those needs. We should, if there's any area we should increase that in, it should also be in the salary side to increase that personnel. If we are increasing, and you alluded to this, the revenue, well then that gives us a chance to reduce the mill. Correct?
Yes, council may elect to reduce the amount.
So instead of reducing the mill, we're increasing the expenditures each year. So the airport log, flight log, actually the internet's a wonderful thing. You can go on there.
But it's limited.
No, you can go on there and for a fee, you can download the logs. And if you notice, and you alluded to this also, that the flights during game day, and the fees are waived for game day weekend, not game day. According to the airport site, it's game day weekend.
Only Friday and Saturday.
Okay, well, that's more than one day, but anyway. When you go on that log, you will see that the flights increase 2/3 of the normal level. So there's no way that you can tell me that that 60% that was quoted was actually coming to Oconee County when 2/3 of the flights are coming in on game day weekend.
May I address that one, please?
Yes.
33 Cessna 182s don't take the same amount of fuel as one Challenger G5.
Okay. All I can say
So we
is,
have a lot more traffic,
right.
but a lot less gallons.
If you look, I'm not talking about fuels, I'm talking about flights. If you look at the flights coming in on game day weekend versus the flights throughout the year, you will see the drastic difference. They average up at the airport.
Yes, sir, I do work here
Okay.
on game day weekends.
And you see the difference.
A big difference.
Yes.
But you
And
go
that's
out
my
there on
point.
a Tuesday and it's very busy as well.
Okay. But it's according to the logs.
Flight aware
It's
does
not,
not
okay.
require
It's,
flight logs.
anyway, we need to review that material and actually look into that because we've not raised the fees at the airport in a very long time. They should be raised. And when you pull the logs, it will actually clear up this matter. That is the things I wanted to bring up. The assets, I appreciate you bringing that up. And Mr. Davis, also have to say you did a great job on getting the YouTube video out there. It helps a lot of people that's not able to come to the meetings. You know, I'm always flying in here by the seat of my pants, trying to make it in here in time.
You said you're flying?
Yeah. By the seat of my pants. Yeah, by the seat of my pants. Yeah, I'm not one of the special group that gets to have the free hangers and all that good stuff. The stormwater engineer, if that's the route we're going, we're truly wanting an engineer, you're not gonna get him for $76,000. I mean, let's be realistic. It's maybe a guy out of college that's gonna work for a year.
I have to go by what's in the chart for positions as listed when that job is posted.
Good luck filling that one. That's another job that's going.
Very likely I'll come back to council and request permission to increase that, but I have to go by the chart that is passed.
But anyway, where I'm going and what really concerns me is what's here on the board. And that's every year we've come up ways with spend the revenue that we've made before. And, you know, I know that we all have certain things that we want to push through in this, but seeing this type of growth in the budget with only a 7,000 increase in population, I think that's what the statistics are. I don't see it. But I do see that y'all are working to improve communication. The ERP system is going to be a great thing to us, and hopefully that'll help bring some of this to light and bring some of the misspent funds with the airport. Anybody that states that there's not spent or misused tax dollars there, you must not look back over the past 7 years of them never getting an increase in their fees charged or the rental fees. That's amazing that's not happened. So there is some ways that we can deal with, and I hope y'all see it in your hearts to pass a temporarily budget to get us through and give us some time to go in and y'all go line item by line item. It makes sense. There's nothing to lose. Do the 2019, do the pay increase with the amended budget. I mean, it's that straightforward. So this argument we're having shouldn't be having. I mean, we've identified the issues. We've identified the shortcomings. We've identified ways.
Well, if he's got questions, that's fine.
Yep. Okay. I'm out here. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Mr. Adams wants to speak.
I vote in favor.
It's been a very good meeting. It's been enlightening to me. It showed the budgeting mentality and the spend mentality. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let's flash forward to next year this time.
Yes, sir.
If our projections on revenue are $60 million, we're gonna make a budget to spend $60 million. Balance revenue expenses.
Mr. Chairman, he needs to address council, please.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Excuse me?
Address council, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
But we got our revenues next year at this time, are projected to be $60 million. We're gonna craft the budget to spend $60 million. And that's gonna balance the expenditures and revenues. Mr. Kane right there mentioned a few years ago when revenues went down. What did we do then? We increased the millage. So if we're real blessed in this county, and say we do believe that we've got a bloated government, we got revenue coming in, why don't we talk about a millage cut? When we don't have the revenue, we add millage. When we got revenue, we spend every bit of it. So this has been a real good meeting tonight. It's told me loads about the budget process. You're gonna spend every penny that comes in. And if you don't get enough, you're gonna add taxes to us.
Mr. Chair, are we having a public hearing again, or?
It's just within the rules, the chairman can, as you're deliberating on this, he can call.
Let's have one more person. Can you stand up?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I just address some comments there? I take issue with that. Number one, I did not say whatever revenue's coming, we're gonna spend. I said, we reacted to the taxpayers asking for school resource officers, and we funded those positions, which required a millage increase that year. We also, due to staff requesting it for years and years, funded a millage increase, we passed a millage increase, which funded a capital equipment replacement plan. It wasn't, hey, we got more money and let's spend it. It was, we need this for the county to be an efficient operation, and the only way to fund it is with a millage increase.
Okay, we're gonna have one more person. Can you stand up and say your name, sir?
Grant Key.
All in favor of Mr. Key? Thank you. This will be the last one.
Thank you, sir. When I'm sitting here, I come to realize that this lady here is an expert on this budget. She knows it through and through. And at the same time, you are not experts on this budget. This gentleman right here, Mr. Hart, owned up as much, that he wasn't. I see that part of your job is a check and a balance to the paid employee's job that put together, I'm assuming, this budget. So what the line item does, it forces you to become experts as she is. And that's really important when you're talking this kind of money, that you know it as well as she does. And I appreciate what you say, I've got a family, I've got a business, man, oh man, no kidding. And it's, it takes all kinds of time. But you ran for the job, you got the job.
You're right.
You gotta be an expert, and you gotta be, and you're not now, it's obvious. But you gotta be an expert like her, and line by line by line by line, you're gonna become that expert, and then we can trust that you check and the balance meet. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got an amendment to vote on. Are we ready for the vote?
Would you state the amendment again, since it's been
I want to do away with the budget that we have now and fall back to the 2019 budget.
May I ask one question, please, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Do you mean year ending 2019 or 2019-20?
I want to go to the 49 million, so many.
That would be year ending 2019 for the record.
Okay.
Steve, I want to say I have a question. The budget that was passed last June, that was the 2019 ending budget, correct?
No, sir, that was the year ending 2020.
Right, but you fell back to it and passed the 2019.
Yes, sir, and made the amendment in September. Yes, sir, you are correct.
So, in essence, it's going back to the budget that
Actual
was passed
budget
1 year
for
ago today.
2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
The actual budget for 2020 was $52,413,921 because the supplemental budget superseded the previous amount. So just for the record, I want to make sure that I understand that.
Okay.
Can you state the amendment again?
I don't know where I can or not.
One more time.
I want to do away with the budget that we have now and go back to the budget that was 49 million bucks. And that would have been the budget, according to this, 2020. What I have on my screen here, well, actually, it's 2019. It's $49,917,946.
It's $817,000. It's $817,000.
Did I? What did I? Okay, well, I don't, what did I say?
$49,817,946.
Okay.
29.
Year ending 2019.
Okay.
Sorry, so that's the motion, so.
Okay, so we're ready for the vote now?
No, we haven't a second.
I second it.
And ma'am, please make a clarification. That was not the budget, that is an actual documented number. That was not the budget amount.
So, what,
I think the easy way, what Glenn's trying to amend is, the budget that was passed in June of 2020, prior to a supplemental amendment, that's the budget that Glenn is.
I believe that was $49,989,000, if I remember right.
We can find it. I just wanted to make a note that we weren't, that the number we stated on the record is not a budget number, it is an actual number. And there is a discrepancy.
So it's the budget that we approved
The original budget,
prior to fiscal year end last year,
correct. Do you have it?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all have an understanding. I just want to make sure for the record.
49, what would that number?
Okay.
Everybody clear?
I'm clear.
You clear?
I mean, besides going back and figuring out what we're not funding, which is a lot more than what we've got. I mean, doesn't.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All opposed to the amendment?
Aye.
Okay, we're back to the amended motion before Mr. Hart's motion. Any discussion on that amended motion?
Just to be clear, it's on 2021-01 as amended by the two motions that carried from Mr. Kane.
Okay, yes, sir.
This is the budget.
This is a vote on the budget, yes, sir.
Mr. Elliott, one thing I wanted to bring up, talking about time, the amount of time that I spend going through the budget is probably more time than I go through my own finances. So I'm not an expert. I don't get paid to be an expert, and I did run for this, and I do spend time on this. So nobody up here should ever say they're an expert unless they're a CPA maybe, but then he's probably not an expert on this budget. But to sit down and go through, our staff has been very willing and has always done that for me from day one that I've been here. I'll probably spend, I don't know, even today, 2 or 3 hours going through this to make sure that I go through, looking at what has gone through the departments, understanding the process from the department heads to the administration. So I do spend probably too much time going through this, and have been through it item by item with staff, and appreciate their time that they've given me on this. Not just this year, but every single year, and as we start back in April. And have actually reached out to other council members to ask them what their questions were so we can have discussion. And then we get into here and have discussion. I'm grateful for this discussion today. This is what, a budget discussion is about. First, second, third, every budget workshop we have. So I'm grateful for that discussion, moving forward. But, we've worked, this is a long process that staff starts working on as soon as this one's passed for the next one. So this is a huge thing that's not done overnight. It's not, it's thought of very a lot. So I won't say anything else.
We ready for the vote? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Aye. Okay. Third reading of ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance to establish the budget for the school district of Coney County and to provide for the levy of taxes for the operations of the school district of Coney County for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Third reading of ordinance 2021-03, an ordinance to provide for the levy of taxes for the Kiwi Fire Special Tax District and to establish the budget for Kiwi Fire Special Tax District for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Is there a motion to adjourn?